Hey guys, here we're going to go into round 2 of Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Dickens. First off, all rights belong to Box Nation. The use of it is protected under the Fair Use Act for criticism, commentary, and creating a new narrative. And my use of it is protected under that Fair Use Act. Second off, anybody in the comments or who's new to the videos, just be cool, We're talking about boxing here, we're analyzing film, right? And we're studying film, and we're creating an analysis. We're trying to figure out, oh, who's going to win based off of, what we see in the fight, There's been some talk about, how do you say it, like bias or this and this and that, The reason we're using Gary Russell for the Lomachenko film study is because that's his most recent southpaw fight. The reason that we're using Dickens versus Guillermo Rigondeaux is because that's his most recent southpaw fight. There's no other reason to use a different one, and that's just the reason. We're looking to see how they go about fighting southpaws, what kind of craft they use, what kind of traps do they set, what kind of, and then we're going to analyze that after we've kind of looked at the rounds that each of the fighters has, and we're going to kind of figure out, okay, what does he do well that's going to work well against this guy? What does he do well that's going to work well against that guy? And then we'll talk about it, but be friendly, or be, just don't be an asshole in the comments, be cool, We're all here because we love boxing. There's no other reason you'd watch a stale-ass film study, and that's what it is, a film study, if you didn't love boxing. So be cool, Also, thanks to everybody who does comment and who is nice. I appreciate it. Thanks to all the new subscribers and the old ones. Yeah, I appreciate the support, guys. So again, I'm going to try and kind of keep a lot of the analysis for the post round, and then re-go over the analysis stuff. But I'm going to try to do film study of the actual round first. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Oh yeah, and round 1 was a slow round. Not a lot happened. Rigondeaux did land a left hand over the top, and we kind of got to see that he was, for the most part, he was just looking to bait Dickens' lead hand out and counter over the top. So counter not a preferred, but a perceived counter punch. So countering a counter, but anyway, but not a lot to do with anything outside of that. Not really looking to set anything up after establishing control, but also Rigondeaux looked to be okay with giving control up to his opponent, allowing him to feint, allowing him to probe, allowing him to use all those movements in front of him, and didn't actually throw any counter punches himself. I think he threw 2 counter jabs off of Dickens' jabs, off of Dickens' counter jabs. So only really looking to take control of Dickens' lead hand, or stop him from taking control, kind of, but countering over the top of his jabs. So Dickens comes out, a little quick, right? Feints inside and doesn't really land the shot. Not like a lot going on here. But this right here, this is a product of Rigondeaux not really controlling the distance between him and his opponent. I did just mention that a little bit. The reason that, there may or may not be any danger in the first place, and I can't really tell if that punch lands or not. It does look like it kind of bounces off his head. But the reason that happens is because Rigondeaux doesn't really control the distance, right? He allows you to work, and he kind of waits for you to make a mistake. I think that's his normal fight pattern. I'm not super sure. I haven't done a lot of film study on him. I did his Donaire fight, and it looked like that was a lot of what he did, was waiting for you to kind of occupy that space, or waiting for Donaire to occupy that space and hit him in between. But he obviously fighting somebody who's not mirroring your stance, the positioning is a little different, right? So I think that, I guess, maybe I should talk about that post-fight. But anyway, not controlling the space between them, and that allows Dickens to get in position and throw punches and then land punches to the body like that. Again, because Rigondeaux's not really controlling the distance between them. He does see the punch coming when he sees Dickens kind of duck down. He knows it's going to be a body shot. Kind of catches him with a right hook counter. But again, he needs to control the distance between them. You know, and you kind of see how, like, I like this about him, like how he has his lead hand kind of out, not super close to his face. So even though he's not necessarily controlling the space between them by feinting or probing or constantly pumping the jab, which I'm not a big fan of, to be honest. I do like the fact that even though he doesn't do that, Rigondeaux does understand that he needs to control that space, and I like how forward and aggressive his lead hand is. And right here, oh, beautiful, beautiful. So right after I say that, right after Dickens comes in and throws those 2 punches and lands those 2 shots, right? Immediately, Rigondeaux actually goes into actually attempting to control the distance between them and vie for lead hand dominance, you know, and I've kind of gotten away from that, you know, talking about that, but it's extremely important for you to be constantly stopping your opponent from entering that space. Even if you're not doing it with punches, even if you're not punching your opponent in the face, you constantly need to have control of that space. Otherwise, they can just come in, give you one little feint, and then you think if you respond poorly to that feint, they're going to be able to land another punch, right? They're going to easily be able to catch you making mistakes or even make you make mistakes. So immediately going to that lead hand control, batting it down right there, thinking a jab is coming. And this is really interesting. So one thing that so there's the lead hand, right? This is really interesting because this whole sequence right here, Rigondeaux is kind of baiting the lead hand from Jazza. He's trying to get him to bring that hand out, you know, just exactly so he can do exactly what he just did a few seconds later, get him to bring that hand out, right? And as soon as he gets him to outstretch his hand, he throws that that lead left hand over the top. But one of the really interesting things that I noticed while doing the film study is that Rigondeaux, when he's moving forward, and we'll talk about this more at the end, but when he moves forward, that's when he kind of starts moving his lead hand. So right there, he steps on his right leg and then punches, right? Steps on his front leg. You know, very similar to the to Canelo, how Canelo sets up his punches, and he has that kind of timing, right? The same timing that that Golovkin was able to take apart David Lemieux with, right? So he leans on that front leg and then throws a shot, right? Leans on that front leg and feints, right? And then here, he leans on that front leg, right? And Jazza Dickens is picking up on it, so he feints him with it, right? And then he leans, so he feints him with it right here, feints him with that same motion because Jazza Dickens is starting to pick up on it too. And then he leans on that front leg, gets Jazza Dickens to bring his hand out and catches him with it. You know, very interesting. You know, great job from Rigondeaux setting that punch up, baiting him and kind of forcing him to try and keep control, right? So just like I was criticizing Rigondeaux about taking those 2 punches, Jazza Dickens knows that he has to control that center too, otherwise he's going to get baited into shots. And unfortunately, it looks like what Rigondeaux is trying to do is bait his opponent into establishing control so he can catch him with a shot over the top. And we'll talk more about this at the end of the round as we kind of see what else it is that Rigondeaux is trying to establish by getting that lead hand to be brought out. But again, right after he lands that shot, right? So feints him, boom, catches him with the big shot. And then also, after he lands that big shot, I love this. Look at how he controls him with his forearm, right? And he kind of pushes off. You know, maybe he doesn't need to do it with his right hand too because he already has his left hand on him because he just connected with that shot, right? Boom. And he could just press his left elbow kind of onto Jazza Dickens to kind of control him so he could pivot out to his right, right? But instead, he kind of uses his left hand to do that as well. You know, I'm not against that, you know, if he thought that was important, right? It kind of does look like his right arm is kind of blocking Dickens from using his left hand, so maybe that's appropriate, right? But I think he could have got away with it with just doing the one arm and then kind of pivoting out or taking an angle. But anyway, immediately from that, now that Jazza Dickens is... Oh, and by the way, I think that's the shot that breaks his jaw as well. I think that's the left hand that breaks Jazza Dickens' jaw. And anyway, right after landing that shot, right, and getting Jazza Dickens to kind of be mindful that that shot's coming, he immediately goes back to just probing with his lead hand, right? Just sticking it out there and trying to get Jazza Dickens to counter over the top with the jab or counter jab, but not really doing anything with the space that he's just created, right? He's stopped Jazza Dickens from being able to control that space. And now, really interesting right there. So now Jazza Dickens is making an adjustment, right? So he shoots the jab, and he's trying to show Rigondeaux that he's shooting the jab. But look at how he shoots it, right? So when he shoots it, he keeps all his weight on his left leg, right? And kind of leans over to kind of get away from a possible counter left hand from Rigondeaux, right? Then immediately flashes the lead hand, and then tries to land an overhand left of his own, trying to bait Rigondeaux into punching with him by extending his lead hand. Kind of try to set a trap for the trap that Rigondeaux has set for him. Now, I'd be very interested in knowing exactly what it is that prompts Rigondeaux to not take the bait, right? But again, the only times that Rigondeaux actually throws that is when he's intentionally trying to bait that lead hand, right? He has this stigma of being a counterpuncher, right? As you can see, like when we go back, it does look like it's a counterpunch. Where the fuck is it? Because he pulls Jazza's lead hand away from his face and then lands the shot. So it makes it look like it's a convincing counterpunch. But because of the fact that he was just baiting that... Whoops, did I just go way too far? Because of the fact that he's baiting that the whole time, it's not really a counter. Especially since it wasn't really a punch either. It was more of a stay off me kind of thing from Dickens. But anyway, not falling for it, for the bait. Very content to kind of punch at his own rhythm, right? Punch at his own pace. Again, you know, not even necessarily controlling the space, right? Or looking to do anything with the space when he does control it. And then immediately kind of giving it away to Dickens right there. And now, ooh! Look at that big shot that he looks like he kind of takes. When you watch it in, the replay, they show it in between rounds. And it looks like it lands right here. Like it looks like it lands on his shoulder. If you look at it in real time, it looks like it lands flush, right? Boom, it looks like it hits him right in the face. But if you look at it in the replay, it barely misses his face, right? But it's really interesting because think about that. We saw Rigondeaux land a great left hand on Dickens. Now we just saw Dickens supposedly land a great left hand onto Rigondeaux, right? Now, we do, and the announcers make it sound like the punch lands too. But if we go back, and now just when you watch the rest of the round, just keep in mind those two big punches and how you're going to score the round, right? Even though, like, you know, post-fight we know that the punch didn't land, just in your mind, think about it as having landed, you know, and then think about how you would score the fight, and that's going to kind of set up a little bit of the post-fight or the post-round talk. But anyway, other important things to note, after Dickens comes in here with this shot, right, he eats the body shot, misses the right hook, and then immediately Rigondeaux tries to grab him, right, but he doesn't control him, right, and he winds up almost eating a big shot. Now, it is important to note that he almost eats a big shot right here, because after those punches come, you know, he kind of takes a little bit of an angle. Dickens beats him to the line, right, and that's why he's able to throw this punch, and Rigondeaux's punch is not able to land. But notice he's not looking to move off the line or to control Dickens or, you know, the defensive responsibility. Even though the punch doesn't land, he doesn't move his head And in kind of scrambles that that Lomachenko has, and he has a lot of them because he's constantly looking to take a superior position, he's going to need to find a way to do this successfully. That might be one of the things that, and right there, that might be one of the avenues that Lomachenko has to score against Rigondeaux, is by taking those angles on him, because as you can see, he was very, very susceptible to eating a shot right there. But interestingly, does he land that right hook? I'm not sure. No, it doesn't look like it. But after he throws this this left hand over the top, he does control Dickens' head really well and then push him off so that he can kind of reset. And that's definitely going to be some of the stuff that he needs to do when he fights Lomachenko. You know, as you can see, there's a lot of inconsistency in whether he does or does not control his opponent. Right, with the body shot, no control, comes up, misses the straight left hand of his own, and then just walks straight back. Throws the right hook, no control, but then he does kind of control him with the left hand after. That's going to be something he absolutely desperately needs to do against Lomachenko, because Lomachenko is going to be looking to bait punches from him, just like he's doing to Jazza Dickens with by baiting his lead hand out and then throwing a left hand over the top. That's one of Lomachenko's primary sources of offense is baiting his opponent's punches, whether it be the jab or the left hand, excuse me, so that he can counter over the top or underneath or whatever. But using techniques like that, where you throw the shot, you can kind of control their head, or use your forearm to push off on them. And it's not the most clean example right there. Maybe we'll see some other ones. But that's going to stop Lomachenko from actually being able to counter those punches as nearly as effectively as he would be able to otherwise. Now, thinking about... now, going back to what I said just a second ago, there's this huge lull in the action right here. Right? Like... Rigondeaux, you know, basically hasn't moved for the last 30 seconds, right? So, let's see. So right here, 2:11, right? He's got his lead hand out, and he's walking in a circle, right? And he's got Dickens like kind of being out feinted, right? There's a jab right there, but kind of being out feinted because he knows that punches might come off of stepping off that lead leg, right? And Lomachenko Rigondeaux does kind of take little tiny steps, so he has more opportunities in those little time frames to throw punches, right? Whereas maybe a taller fighter or a fighter who takes longer steps is going to have half as many opportunities to punch. If you're taking little tiny steps to step around your opponent, you might have twice as many opportunities. So Dickens is being a little wary too, as you notice the rhythm of him leaning on his left leg. Dickens brings his gloves up, right? Leans on his left leg. And you can kind of see that little, like, battle for who's going to have control of that space, right? And for the most part, you know, Rigondeaux is getting away with winning it just by leaning on his right leg. But there he is with that timing, getting taken advantage of, right? So, as you can see, he goes to step on his lead leg. Dickens times it perfectly and catches him with a body shot. This is going to be something that's very pivotal for the fight between him and Rigondeaux, because this is exactly what between him and Lomachenko, because this is exactly what Lomachenko was doing to Gary Russell Jr. as well, taking advantage of that timing. And I think Gary Russell Jr. gets away from it a little bit, and it does cause him to not have, not to take as many punches, but it is something that Lomachenko is going to look to exploit against Rigondeaux, and Rigondeaux is going to have to work on during the course of the fight and make adjustments to his timing to avoid danger. Now again, going back to what I was saying a second ago, Rigondeaux has control of the space between them, right? But he's not doing anything with it, right? Dickens is way too shook to throw punches. His jaw's broken, right? And Rigondeaux is not throwing any punches. Now, I'll address this like a little bit post-fight or post-round. But it is really important to note that after landing those shots, he goes back to immediately trying to land that same style offense again, right? Baiting the lead hand, and he's waiting, trying to get him to commit to it, and he throws like a left hook right there, or a right hook right there. You know, I'm not sure why he thought that might wind up being successful, because Dickens was kind of blocking in that's the same guard that he uses. Why did he think a left hook was going to get through there? Maybe there's something else that I'm missing. Maybe he's trying to get Dickens to turn away, right? So that's also a common trap, where if you throw a hook, you turn away from the hook, and maybe he's trying to get Dickens to turn away from that hook so he can throw a straight left hand at him. That could be. But remember, this round so far, Rigondeaux has landed that big left hand that broke Dickens' jaw, and Dickens, quote-unquote, landed a left hand that it really looked like a convincing left hand, you know. You watch it in slow-mo or you watch it post-round and you see that it doesn't land. But other than those two punches, you know, Dickens landed a straight left to the body and a jab right at the start of the round, and then he landed another jab to the body, I think, and then Rigondeaux landed one jab to the body. It's like a fairly even round, you know, in terms of like damage, right? You know, taking away from the fact that you don't really know that his jaw's broken, except for the fact that Dickens has actually landed twice as many punches, or twice as many power punches, right? Rigondeaux's landed one, Dickens has landed two, right? They're very, very close in number, right? But not a lot has gone on since that big left hand. And it prevents like an interesting dilemma for scoring the round. Now, again, leaning on that front leg and then punching when he does, right? Trying to show him that he's baiting that baiting the lead hand again, and now he finally gets him to commit to the lead hand again, and then immediately throws a straight an overhand left off of that same timing, right? So he leans on the front leg, right? Boom. And then tries to bait him into landing a left hand. But again, not really setting the punch up, right? He took information that he learned from a previous feint and then just assumed that same feint or that same style was going to last or was going to work. And that's like kind of like the most basic level of feinting in my book, right? It's like I call it like boxing, like C-level skills, whereas like real probing and like really good feints, you adjust to what your opponent gives you in the moment, right? So had he done this right here, boom, and got him to lead his lead hand out, had he taken advantage of it right there, then you would call it a probe, because he's looking to take advantage of the openings and the mistakes that he makes him make, right? And he makes him make this mistake, so he could have landed that lead left hand over the top, but instead, you know, kind of going back to it and trying to take advantage of that pattern, but not like real time, you know. Anyway. And again, like a lot of this is predicated off of the pattern that Dickens has picked up on of Rigondeaux, right? So Rigondeaux not leaning on his front leg, right? So he leans on his front leg and he moves back. So he's not really in punching position. Maybe he can throw counters from that position. I'm not sure. But usually Rigondeaux is very very deliberate with his counters, right? And I wonder if that's the case too, right? If I went back and watched round one again, would the reason why Rigondeaux is not throwing punches when Dickens is crowding him or Dickens is coming forward, would it be because his weight is all on his back leg and he's not pressing forward on his right leg, on his front right leg? I'm not sure. Again, going back to the same craft, right? Trying to get him to pull his lead hand away, and he does right there. Let's see if he throws in a left hand immediately. No. Okay. So going to the body again, getting them to pull his lead hand away, and then getting him to do it again and throwing a body shot. You know, not bad. You know, a decent shot, but a very slow round so far. Now they're basically kind of tied up in power punches and jabs and such, but a very slow round, aside from the fact that we have to remember that that one left hand didn't really land. Yeah, again, a really slow round again. So feinting, catching his shot against the same lead left leg, right? So he knows it's coming because he's about to step on his left leg or his right leg, and he's able to counter him while he's moving off the line. You know, decent job from Dickens taking advantage of those timings. Interesting. I wonder if he realizes how much he's telegraphing that. Like, in my opinion, it's a pretty obvious telegraph that he's going to throw a left hook. But almost, for some reason, he almost gets Dickens with that shot. Even though he's thrown it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and Dickens has blocked it every time. I wonder what's changed in his book. What Dickens saw differently in that regard. You know, that also would have been another great opportunity for him to land an overhand left, right? If he was taking advantage of the mistakes that he's making him make, right? But he doesn't for some reason. Anyway, you know, a pretty slow round. I think maybe 10 punches landed the whole time. And we'll kind of... There's the good punch that he lands. But here he comes up and just barely misses that and hits him in the shoulder. You know, but... real time, it looked like it landed. Ooh. So anyway, as far as like the film study, you know, a pretty slow round, right? You know, Jazza Dickens comes out and lands the jab and lands the body shot right after because he's not controlling the distance. You know, now that's not something he's going to be able to get away with against Lomachenko. Right, Lomachenko has so many more feints, so many more probes. He's going to be able to get Rigondeaux out of position so much easier than Dickens does, right? But this is also really interesting too. Like you notice, like right after he lands that lead left hand, right? Boom, great punch. 35 seconds into the round, almost nothing else happens in the round, right? Why isn't Rigondeaux pressing forward? Why isn't he using more feints? Why isn't he using more probes? You know, for the most part, he kind of relies on this one little trap that he's set, right? Bringing his opponent's lead hand away from his body so he can land or away from his face so he can land a lead left hand over the top, and then he switches it up later in the round to land a lead left hand to the body, right? But not using the space that he's created, right? Like right here, he's kind of just sitting in front of Dickens for like, you know, 15 seconds, right? Just sitting there. Stale guard, right? His head's not moving. He's not really doing anything to set his punches up. And I think that this is a fundamental... This is one of the problems that Rigondeaux is going to have against Lomachenko, because... even if Rigondeaux is able in the beginning rounds, in the first few rounds, or the first round or two, you know, maybe even 5 rounds, if he's able to out-chess maneuver him, right, play that high-speed chess game and kind of come out a little bit on top or land some good shots and keep Lomachenko on the outside, because there's no actual pressure from Rigondeaux, Lomachenko is going to be able to get himself back into the fight. You know, there's never going to be a time where Lomachenko is going to be pushed so far out of the fight that he couldn't make Guillermo Rigondeaux make a mistake and catch him with a shot that could knock him out, right? Look at this whole round. You know, Rigondeaux broke his jaw this round, and he's not pressing the action. Granted, you're not going to really know that you broke his jaw, but you know you hit the guy with a fucking banger, right? Like, everybody knows that. You feel that in your hand the whole fucking round. You're just like, man, that was a good shot. I can't wait to get another one, you know? And now, like, some people in the comments section in the previous video, they talk about how Rigondeaux makes it look easy, right? And Lomachenko uses too much energy to do his work, right? But look at how slow this round is. Again, that's painting in the same narrative. It's because Lomachenko is so much better at setting his punches up. He understands that against a high-level guy like Rigondeaux, like, Jazza Dickens is not a bad fighter. You know, I thought he looked pretty good in the first round, using some feints and probes, a good active guard. You know, he doesn't understand, like, all the things that he needs to be doing with his feints and his probes, right? But doing it, you know, just barely, like, just so much, like a slightly less good job than Rigondeaux is doing. Like, just a little bit less of a good job, right? But unfortunately for him, he doesn't have the punching power of Rigondeaux, so he's not going to break his ribs or his jaw with his punches. But what was I saying? But it takes a lot of work to set your punches up. So although Rigondeaux doesn't make a lot of mistakes, right? He doesn't make a lot of mistakes on his own, right? He fundamentally, like, he has great positioning. He understands where he is in the ring, and he doesn't put himself out of position. It's not that hard also to get him out of position in the first place because of the way that he responds to feints. Like right here, right? Boom. Dickens feints high, right? So he goes up and then goes low and then gets Rigondeaux to bring his gloves down and turn sideways, right? If Lomachenko did that, maybe he comes in over the top with the left hand as well, right? Because the feint worked, right? He was able to get Rigondeaux out of position. Also, maybe Rigondeaux comes back with a straight left hand. But the fact is because of the fact that Rigondeaux doesn't control the space between them, and he doesn't look to do anything with the space when he does have control of it or when no one's contesting it, fighters like Lomachenko are always going to be able to set their punches up. They're always going to be able to make you make mistakes, and that's going to be one of the problems that Rigondeaux has. He does make it look easy. He doesn't waste a lot of movement, but it's also not that hard to get him to react to your feints. To get him to react to your probes. Because of the fact that he does know what the correct position is for all of these punches. Oh, he's throwing a jab. I want to slip this way. Oh, he's throwing a right hand. Or a left hand, I want to slip this way, or I want to move this way. And he does make all those movements, but it's also really easy to bait him into making them. And I think that's going to be a huge problem for him fighting Lomachenko. But again, like to the people who say like he makes it look easy or he doesn't waste energy, if you give your opponent two feints, and then you throw a left hand and you crack him with a left hand, was that really that much energy that you wasted to land that left hand? Like, and you think about that and you compare it to the rest of this round, right? Remember, 30 seconds into this round, Lomachenko lands that huge left hand, right? But nearly doesn't land another punch almost the entire round. And that's because he doesn't understand how to set his punches up. And again, that just goes to, in my mind, it makes me give so many more opportunities to Lomachenko, assuming Rigondeaux doesn't just break his jaw and make him quit, right? But it gives him so many more opportunities to look for haymaker shots or, crowd him and find ways to pick up on patterns of Rigondeaux, bait him, and land his own shots. It's because of the fact that although Rigondeaux can do physically he can do everything that Lomachenko does, he just doesn't know what they're accomplishing in the ring, right? When you feint somebody low or you feint somebody high and you get them to bring their hands up or down, and he doesn't realize that all that stuff has a purpose. It has, so Rigondeaux is kind of limiting himself by not using tactics like that. But anyway, that's the difference between Lomachenko and Rigondeaux, right? Is that so far their only offense for Rigondeaux and his team is he has one trap, and that's to punch right here, like he's just doing right here, right? Just probing, trying to get Dickens to bring his hand out so he can counter over the top. Not really using any other tactics to set his punches up, not really using any other feints or probes, but a very one-dimensional offense from him versus a fighter like Lomachenko, who has a lot of craft, who not only can he make you pay for bringing your lead hand away from your head by throwing a left hand over the top or catching you with a hook, or as he did to Gary Russell, slipping the shot, catching him with a right uppercut and then a left uppercut and then a right hook. Not only does he have the ability to take away your lead hand when you're contesting that area, right? Or when he's baiting you into throwing it, But when he's not baiting you into doing it, right? Like Dickens, right? How much longer in the round is he not going to be baited into bringing his lead hand by Rigondeaux, right? Not only does the time that Rigondeaux or that Lomachenko, when he's not baiting those shots, he's actually still setting up other punches and other offenses, because baiting those shots and pulling those punches from your opponent and setting those kinds of traps so that you can maintain the distance or you can maintain control of the distance, that's only a small part of your game, right? So you want to, especially for a fighter like Lomachenko who wants to get on the inside and land lots of punches, right? And people say that oh, that's his style and this is Rigondeaux's style. It's like, in my opinion, it's more of a lack of style from Rigondeaux, right? Don't make any mistakes. Wait for your opponent to make mistakes and punch them in the face. That's not a style of boxing, right? That's a strategy for fighting, but that's not a boxing style. And the reason that it's important to say that is because, like I was saying, Lomachenko has the same skill, right? Where he can make you pay for bringing your hands away from your face. And he can make you bring your hands away from your face and make you think you're doing the right thing and make you pay for it. But even when he's not able to bait those kinds of shots, he knows how to make you make other mistakes so that he can set up his offense too. And just from these 2 rounds, it doesn't look like Rigondeaux has that skill or that understanding of boxing. He does have understanding enough of the fundamentals that no matter what, it's going to be a good fight. But it does so far look like he's just not on Lomachenko's level in that regard. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna I could do some keys to victory now, or I could risk my whole boxing channel and do a video on the Charlo brothers. Charlo's fighting this guy. One of them's fighting Erickson Lubin, and then the other one's fighting... Is Erickson Lubin the left-handed guy? I'm not sure. Well, the 154-pound Charlo brother, I think he's fighting this weekend. Maybe they're both fighting? I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, Lennox, I'm coming for you. Oh, man, that's my favorite interview of all time. But anyway, I got a request for that. If you guys would like to see that, because that's coming up this weekend, I could do a breakdown of that Charlo brothers fight against the Southpaw. I looked at some film study on that Southpaw, and I don't know. It's tough because fighters that are green, right? And I think in my mind, I do think that the Charlo brothers are a little green. They're like not quite, Rigondeaux level, where they completely understand positioning and, but they're at that level of setting up their punches, the same level where they're more waiting for you to make mistakes rather than setting up their own shots, even though they're a little more active in their offense. But doing film studies on fighters like that is sometimes really difficult, and the actual pace of it is a little slow, even though my videos are already fucking slow. A lot of times those fights, like Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman, right? Everyone just assumed, because we had seen Danny Garcia get so many gift decisions, that Danny Garcia was just going to get his ass whooped by Keith Thurman. But in reality, it wound up being a really great and close fight, like a really fun to watch fight. And that's just because neither one of them is that great at setting up their punches. Neither one of them use very many high-level probes and feints and stuff, and that's one of the problems that both of the Charlo brothers kind of have at this point in their careers. They haven't developed yet to that that Floyd Mayweather kind of, when he wants to use his feints and his probes, he does really well. They haven't gone to that Golovkin, that Lomachenko level, that Crawford level, and they're just a little bit green for film study. But if you guys are interested in doing that, I've also been wanting to do the Julian Williams film study. I saw him in his next fight after the Charlo brother knocks him out, and he looked phenomenal. He looked amazing in that fight. In his fight right after that, I think he moves up in weight, but he looked tremendous in that fight. So I have been wanting to do a film study on that fight, and I have a request for somebody breaking it down too. So let me know what you guys think, if you guys want to see some Charlo Brothers next, or if you guys want me to go ahead and start working on Keys to Victory and stuff. I usually do the Key to Victory videos over the weekend because I have just so much more time to sit in front of my videos or sit in front of my computer and chop video up. So maybe actually that's a better idea. So yeah, maybe I'll look into doing the Charlo Brothers tomorrow. I'll start picking up some fights. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. I'll do a Charlo video. Oh, one of them's fighting Jarrett Hurd. Yeah, Jarrett Hurd. That's the 160-pound guy, I think. He's gonna kill that guy. And I also think that the Charlo brother, the younger one, or not the younger one, the smaller one, is fighting Erickson Lubin. I think he's gonna murder that guy too. But it'll be like an entertaining fight for however long it goes. But anyway, I'll look into do some breakdowns on those fighters tomorrow. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thanks, guys.